and harassment of councillors, clerks and council staff in person or online is unacceptable, whether by councillors, clerks, council staff or public members. Any person adjudged by the chair of the meeting to have breached this rule may be asked to apologise, withdraw their statement and or leave the meeting. Okay. With that in mind, we will move to public participation. Mr. Bennett.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, councillors and members of the public. I hope you give me a chance to say what I want to say. It's very important for you. The breakwater. Right, the breakwater was built in 1819 to 1820. It was built to protect you from the force of the waves. The storm washed it away because it was built upright walls and it was demolished by the sea. So then an engineer back in 1843 called George Caseform, who was a brilliant engineer, designed the new breakwater which is there now, and it was developed to break the sea down. But now, since 1982 when I worked on it, they ruined it. They pumped 250 tonne of liquid cement in the breakwater. They drilled big holes in the breakwater and pumped liquid cement into it. Yet the breakwater was always full of sea gravel, and that was the reason that when the waves came in, they used to break up on the seaside of the breakwater. And when we were kids, you could stand on top of the breakwater on any tide and not get your feet wet. Now, you could get washed off the breakwater because the breakwater is covered in concrete. And the engineer designed it. And when we were kids, you could stand there and you could hear the waves coming on the breakwater and soak right into the breakwater, and you could hear it soaking into the breakwater. And the volume of water in the breakwater in the sea gravel used to hold the breakwater. But now, because it's all been concreted over, and I worked on it, and now the waves go right over the breakwater, no matter what size tide it is. And it's a serious situation. Now, the only way to get over it now, if Cornwall Council or anybody, any charity people, put floating breakwater outside of the breakwater. Engineers have developed them. They put concrete slabs on the seabed out from the breakwater. The chains coming up, or cables, the floating pontoons that go like this. And they break up all the waves. And on the inside, it's calm, you could swim there. And no waves would go up over the breakwater. Because if it isn't done, the sea levels are rising and Bude will be in a serious way. They'll be flooded. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tilsey.
Can I just say on behalf of me and perhaps many others that I totally agree with him, and that it's neglect by county council. You know, I think we should personally just let county council know that the general public are getting more and more aggrieved at the state of the breakwater as compared to what it was when it was looked after basically on a daily manner. However, that's my comment.
Okay.
I would just like to reassure Mr. Bennett that I have been a bit of a pain towards Cornwall Council every time I get the chance to mention the breakwater, etc. The other day I was down the breakwater with my two dogs, and there was two chaps, and they were out on the breakwater. They were observing the harbour, the sand dunes, etc. I don't know whether they recognised me, but they certainly were doing their best not to engage with me at all. So I think concerns are getting through to Cornwall Council. And I believe from somebody I spoke to earlier, no, last year now, that they are pulling in some chap who's meant to be Mr. Breakwater. So I hope that does reassure you slightly.
Well, another thing, Jennifer, I can just carry on.
Yeah.
Now the waves come over the breakwater. They never used to. When we were kids, you would stand there on any tide and you wouldn't get your feet wet. Now they come right over the breakwater on any tide and they build up the water in the river. And that's why Bude floods now. Because the sea is pushing against the river water coming down. And that's what's making the river rise. And that's what's going to cause a problem in Bude.
Being on planning, I would argue it's all the building inland that is causing more water runoff,
Yes.
which is increasing the amount of water coming down the.
And all the houses
Yeah.
that have been built on
Yeah.
the fields,
But-
creates terrific amount of water.
Yeah.
Okay, councillor Colwell.
I take on board everything that's been said, and I'm of an age that I can remember the waves hitting the breakwater and it would kind of seep through and come out the other side like a head on a pint of beer. But that's gone, I'm afraid, and unfortunately we'll never get it back. My concern is that the breakwater falls between three stools. It's considered a heritage asset, it's considered an asset for the harbour, and it is a flood defence asset for Bude. And I would like clarity that it is first and foremost a flood defence asset. And although Councillor Broy, when I've raised this before, somewhat disagrees with me, I would prefer it to be managed by the Environment Agency as a flood defence asset rather than by Cornwall Council. But I think that the clarity is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Can I just say one more thing?
One more then.
Right, sorry. I'm a grandson of Captain Eddie Hines, and my great-grandfather, Captain Eddie Hines. They brought ships into Bude, and they used to go Ireland, Wales, all over the world, and bring stuff in to Bude with the Jules family, which is Chris's relations.
Yeah.
They were well known. And my grandfather sent me out to sea, took me out, and brought me back. And he said, never be afraid of the sea, but always respect it, because it's got more power than man can ever conquer.
It's good advice. Okay, anything to say? Chris, you're going to have something for us?
Mr. Mayor,
How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good.
I've got a few things. Last year it was promised that the large potholes in the Colback Hill Bridge would be repaired. I understand that they've not yet been done. The other thing is, the young woman that works in Smith's shop, who lives over Vickers Roadway, was wondering about whether there were going to be any 20-mile-an-hour zones in Linson Road, Vickers Road area. Because I couldn't answer it, but I said I would ask. If you've ever driven along that road, bearing in mind that there are 2 residential homes for elderly people and such like, the speed of some vehicles is not, it's well above 30 miles an hour, and there are no proper crossings or anything. So that could be noted and passed on presumably to Cornwall Council. And the final thing is, this is a little bit more local to me, almost right outside where I live, there's another pothole, which is about 2 or 3 feet. And it's about 4 inches deep. Now, obviously in daylight you can see it, and cars drive over it, but anybody walking who didn't know where they were, they could break their ankles. So, and I think that might be the town council. I'll let you can decide that. You own the back lane, don't you?
Okay, all right, we'll pass it on to the facilities team.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. I just agree with everything that Mr. Bennett said.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, good evening. I'm a long-term resident of Berries Avenue.
I know.
That's how we tend to do.
I used to climb the tree in your head.
I'd like to bring attention to the council really of parking issues and the volume of traffic, certainly at the lower end of Berries Avenue.
Yeah.
And it's very coincidental that now that the community cafe is operating there, be it staff or customers, who knows? But for residents down at that end of Berry Down, it's become an absolute nightmare, blocking people's driveways. Many a time that, I know somebody lives opposite, who can't get out their drive at all. Polite notices don't seem to have much effect. And there are just cars parked everywhere, even around Bude and Post now. And it's become an issue, particularly for bus drivers who, that's a frequent route up and down there.
Yeah.
And I watch them struggle to get through many a time. And if emergency services were needed, Lord knows how they get through a lot of the time.
Yeah,
That's obviously been brought to your attention.
I travel down through that regularly, so.
And also, from what this gentleman says, 20 mile an hour zone would be advantageous, certainly in that values.
Yeah, just a little bit of information. So I think that it is, so I also live up there. It is on the 20 mile an hour zone list. So it is going to be, as far as I know, 20 mile an hour, which is something that I've asked for a long time. And somebody might be able to use the actual words, but when Councillor Lebroy was here last time, he talked about the highways and extra money being given to Cornwall Council to be able to do some road improvements, and he wanted suggestions, and I put forward a suggestion to him that the parking on Berries Avenue is atrocious, and if there was an emergency, and even just the other day I was going up there and we had to stop because someone had pulled over on the side of the road and a bus couldn't get through, so we were all just sitting there. There was nothing we could do. So yeah, I have passed that on, and I know that he took that down specifically to put to. So just it is out there. If that helps.
People who actually manage to get out of the drive, difficult enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you try to get out, you've got a car here, you cannot see, and there's cars attacking you from both directions. And it's become an absolute nightmare, as you well know. Would parking permits be something that might be?
It's always worth having a conversation with our local councillor, Councillor Lebroy. I'm sure he'd be interested. Like I've said, it's not the first time I've personally mentioned it to him, but I don't know what if any future plans would be. So that's not for me to say.
Councillor Jennings.
I spoke to a couple down there, and they just say it's an accident waiting to happen, really, because they park right on the junction.
Yeah.
They said they want some, basically double yellow lines on that, where you turn into Beedhaven Close.
Yeah.
Because there is going to be a crash there one day, because nobody can see what's coming up or down the road. I've spoken to a couple of the bus drivers, and they said they can get through, but it's bloody tight at times.
Yeah, I agree.
But they got a sign down there, haven't they? On the grass bit, on the grass triangle, it says, "Please do not park there."
Oh, the community cafe have put a sign out to try and stop people.
Obviously, the customers can't read. Somebody parking the day.
I think I take your point. I'm just looking on the map for the 20 mile an hour zone. All of that Berries Avenue area is going to be 20 miles an hour. So that'll be dealt with from the speed perspective. But I think that, and obviously it sounds like the community cafe is probably aware, but based on the conversation, is it worth us, do you feel that we could write to the community cafe to highlight the issue that's been raised to us, and then potentially engage in a conversation with Cornwall Council related to double yellow lines or whatever in an appropriate area to manage the traffic through there?
That seems reasonable to me. Would you be?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Can you do that, please?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Barrett.
Just a query, really. Is the council doing some sort of revamp of the council website? Because I've been looking for old minutes and agendas, and some seem to have disappeared, and one, I can't remember which one it was, seems to have moved. Is there work being done in that?
Any work being done?
Whatever you want, I can get. Yeah, we're not aware of a process of
update taking place at the moment, although the website is going to be improved before too long. So but I'm not sure why documents will have moved or disappeared. It may be that they've been archived, but if you could let me know which ones, we can certainly find them. They won't have disappeared altogether.
Okay, what I would comment is that they're quite an important research tool, so I would like them to stay online.
Yeah, okay, I'll look into it, see what's happened.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Nobody else there? Okay, we'll move on. To receive apologies and accept the reasons for any non-attendance.
We've had apologies from Councillor Roy, who's read it very well, and also from Cornwall Councillor Fay Emily.
Okay, thank you. To receive any declarations of interest on items on the agenda and agree any dispensations. Anyone? No. Receive the mayor's report. I was invited along to an event this month, but unfortunately I couldn't make it. So the deputy mayor went. So would you like to?
Yeah, I quite enjoy going to events that you don't make. This was the Royal Naval Association, and they have a big association that does a lot of stuff for all their ex-servicemen. The Southwest branch is quite a large branch. There's a lot of local organisations, and this is the first time they've ever had their AGM in Bude. So Bude was very lucky. It was absolutely great to put it on the web, get it out there. Delegates were invited to come early so that they could have a look around Bude. Very, very well attended event. Deb Deacon did the opening prayers with one of their people, and yeah, it was great. Thank you for letting me go.
Okay. To note any reports from Cornwall councillors, there aren't any here. To receive any updates from Bude-Stratton Council Committee chairs.
It's not actually my committee chair role, but it is something that I did on behalf of Bude-Stratton Town Council. So some of you may know Deacon Deb, and she had a final service last weekend, and I went along and presented her with some flowers on behalf of Bude-Stratton Town Council. It was a wonderful service. She's obviously a very well-loved lady, and you could tell how much. It was packed. There was, honestly, I've never seen so much cake in my life. Some wonderful stories, lots of tears, lots of hugs. I was very lucky personally to work with her a couple of times, and she will be very, very missed, but it was a really wonderful afternoon. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
I'll second what was said about Deb Deacon's Thanksgiving service, and hearing some of the stories about her was very interesting.
Okay.
The only thing that I can report really of significance was that the committee, Corporate Democratic Committee, agreed to continue to allow the market to trade outside the Methodist Church.
Very good.
There'll be new licences drawn up for those traders. It's the only significant thing.
Yeah, just to update on the matter of the Cliff Hotel application, planning application to reduce the affordable element from 7 units down to 4, and I think you might have missed the meetings, but the planning committee said we basically, if it's not possible, well, why don't you just revoke use your powers under section 97 of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990 to revoke the planning commission in full. Anyhow, there was negotiations took place between the applicants and the planning officer, as you would expect. And the deal that was hammered out was that they would get a reduction of 1 affordable unit rather than 3. So we were given the opportunity to call it into, ask for it to be called into committee, but the majority, I think, took the pragmatic approach and accepted that this was probably about as good as we're going to get. So that it wasn't about making a point. Sorry, it was about making a point, not about getting it the planning commission revoked. But out of that, there has been some informal kind of conversations going on, and ideas have come up, and it will be something that I suspect the planning committee will be getting in at an earlier stage, so to speak, if there's developments with affordable units. We will take a more proactive approach because it's an ongoing problem. It's going on for a lot of years that developers get planning permission on the basis of so many affordable units, then they build them or half build them and come back and say, oh no, we can't afford it, it's not viable. And we will be looking at ways that we can address that issue perhaps at an earlier stage and say, well, you know, if you can't do it, maybe another provider can. And during the discussions, there was nobody suggested that, even though the town council objected to the planning application, nobody suggested that this was a way of getting it overturned because we didn't like it. It focused entirely on the affordable element. And so, you know, if it does get to a situation where developers can't afford it, well, how about housing trusts? One other thing that was discussed yesterday, and we will be on the agenda for next one, is that recently Pounceville Parish Council requested that there be a moratorium on further development, well, certainly within a fee, until the sewer system is sorted out. Because it is, you know, it's bad, pretty bad. And so we will be hopefully discussing that and considering whether we support that approach or not at our next planning committee meeting, which I hope you'll all attend. And just thank you very much to the planning committee. We've had some very interesting discussions recently, and I do appreciate the contributions.
Thank you. Right, so we want minutes. Full council to approve the minutes of the previous meeting on the 15th of January 2026. Seconded, all in favour? Against? Abstain? Committees to receive and note the minutes of committee meetings. Cultural and Heritage Committee, 14th of January 26.
Nice.
Seconded, all in favour? Against? Abstain? Planning Committee, 28th of January 26. Seconded, all in favour? Against? Abstained? Corporate and Democratic Committee, 29th of July 2026. Recommendation CD 008/26, recommend a full council. Oh, sorry, got to do the minutes first, haven't we? Somebody propose it. Seconded, all in favour? Against? Abstained. Now the recommendation CD 008/26, recommend the full council that the council vision of 2026 to 2029 be adopted. Vicky.
I do have issues with this because I personally feel that I don't think enough councillors have actually been involved in each of the vision ones. I know I missed two of them, but the one I did go to was very poorly attended. I think staff actually outweighed councillors. I'm also concerned that it sort of puts us almost as a political party. And I sort of feel that we're all our own people on this council. And we all do speak very much for what we believe in and what we believe is best for you. It's also tying us all down for the next 3 years. That's just off the top of my head about it.
Okay.
I'd like to see if we can put some extra wording in under thriving community and economy, where it says everyone, tourism benefits, everyone, creating opportunities. It says for residents and visitors. Can we put the word businesses in there too? Because it's to do with the thriving economy. So we could just insert that. It does say on the line above it. Yeah, it just didn't hammer it home a bit. What do you think?
It's not in this pack. I think it came round as a separate item later, which makes it very difficult for everybody tonight to actually comment on it.
Have you got it?
Could I?
Thank you.
Can I just take issue really with what Vicky said, because I think in any organisation you need to have a strategy for where we're going. And my feeling is that I didn't attend one of the meetings, I think, but others were well attended. We worked very hard at getting this information down. And from my perspective, and it obviously can be a wrong perspective, one of the negatives about this council in previous eras has been that there hasn't been a strategy and a mission statement as to what we are aiming to do. And that leads to atrophy and just meandering around. And my belief is that as an organisation with a mission statement, which may not be perfect, but then at least it's there, it's something that we're working to, it's cohesive and it's cabinet based. And therefore, I think it's essential that an organisation such as this has a document such as this. So I firmly believe we need something like this.
Yeah, I'd just like to add to that, I suppose, really, that when you look at this, there's nothing in here that's particularly groundbreaking. This is all stuff that we should be doing anyway. We're not really committing ourselves to do anything that I would reasonably expect us to do. I think it is important, just to reiterate really what Jeremy said, that this is really used as a reference document touchstone for us to measure all of our performance and our capability, especially within the committee system. Everything that we do should be linked back to what this is, because if it's not included in here, the question is, should we really be doing it? And I think where perhaps previous councils have fallen foul, as you said, is that they're sort of meandering along, picking things that seem to be appropriate at the time based on individuals' personal sort of agendas, if you like. They don't necessarily meet what the overall council view is. So I don't see this as being a particularly difficult thing. We've worked quite hard on this over quite a long period of time, and whether councillors have been available to attend all the meetings or not is for them, really. But I do think enough people have been involved along the process, and there's a lot of work going on in the background to achieve this. And I don't see it as being a particularly difficult thing to want to agree on.
Yeah, I think it's very easy to be cynical about these sorts of things, and sometimes I am cynical. Sometimes I do take the easy way out. If this sits in a drawer and never gets looked at again, then that's probably par for the course for most organisations. I would hope that this can be something that provides a foundation for next level objectives. And it is the next level objectives which I think are more important when we get down to specific projects and identifying things that we actually want to spend some money on. So for me, although I can sort of empathise with people who think it's a little bit woolly and maybe it's a little bit motherhood and apple pie. If we don't have this, it becomes very important to do the next stage, which is more important. So I'd recommend that we take this on board.
I'll come back with that, as Jeremy said, most of this stuff we should be doing anyway. So do we need something to say that we are doing it anyway?
I believe absolutely.
But it doesn't have it in here any manageable targets. We talk about doing projects. We talk about working in partnership to improve health and well-being. Yet we don't say what we see those things as. It's all very nice to me. I think the mayor's Christmas speech was better, where he listed more or less 4 core things that I felt were very much at the heart of what Bude-Stratton Town Council is about and should be about.
Yeah, okay, just to respond to that again, I suppose the point as to whether we should be doing it or not is neither here nor there. The fact is that you could argue that we are doing it, So therefore, there's no problem about having a document that proves that we're doing it. You know, to suggest that we don't need documents to prove that we are doing what we're doing seems nonsensical. It's not tying us to anything. And again, the point Vicky made is entirely correct. It's exactly what Kevin referred to. This isn't the document that provides the level of detail that you're speaking about. That's the next level up. So therefore, you've got to have the foundation in place in the first place in order to build on that foundation to create the level of detail that you're requesting. If you don't have the foundation, you can't have the detail. So again, I don't see this as being a particularly difficult thing. We as councillors need to be held to account by everything that we do. This is a very useful document for us to remind ourselves of what it is that we're accountable for every time we sit in this room in a committee and measure. And when you say about measurement, these are the things: diligence, compassion, inclusivity, transparency, ambition, communication, adaptability are exactly the values that we should be adopting when we're in this room and basing our decisions on. So if we need to be constantly reminded that is what we're here to do, and I don't have a problem with that. And the other thing I'd just add to that, it's very important for the rest of our community to see that that's how we're being measured as well. And it's perhaps more for their benefit than it is for ours.
That was what I was about to say. It's about being accountable, and it's about, if we write it down and put it out there to the public, then they know that this is what we're going to do and this is what we are going to do. And it also helps staff and our departments to be able to see what our vision is so that they understand what we're about, and it helps with those levels of communication and working together, not just with the public but with everybody that is part of Bude-Stratton Town Council. And I think that we should go ahead with this.
I'm very happy with the bullet point 1 and the Common Council 6 priorities identified 12th of November 2025, which says strong, safe, vibrant communities with more decent and affordable housing. And that's certainly, yes, sorry. Oh, sorry, that's Common Council, yeah, but we yeah, okay. But it's something that I did mean to mention earlier on, is that with the portfolio holder for housing, the Common Council being member of this council as well, it might give us an opportunity to progress that more in a more effective way than otherwise I could get. So, yeah, sorry, thank you for that.
As you know, I'm a bit indifferent whether we adopt it or not at the movement. I propose that the recommendation is made. I'll second it. Yeah. Can I just ensure that the amendment that was suggested by is included?
Including the amendment that was as amended.
Could that be repeated?
Oh, right, yeah, so we're on, obviously.
Thriving community.
Yeah, thriving community and economy. You get to the second page, it says, local businesses promoting tourism that benefits everyone and creating opportunities for residents and visitors to thrive. Well, can we put businesses at the front of that? Businesses, residents and visitors to thrive, because it's about businesses really, isn't it? And all benefit from it. Otherwise, I'm quite happy with it.
I agree.
It's going to come to Richard because he's had his hand in the air for a while.
Thank you, Chair. Just as a member of the public who knows nothing about this document, first of all, I'd like to know if members of the public can see the document that you're talking about. It sounds like an interesting piece of paper. And then the other thing is, what I will point out is, you're talking about a council vision. Let me tell you that sometimes the vision of this council is not one that the public agrees with. So, accountability is a lovely word.
Yeah.
We haven't always had it. So, yeah. The public will be thinking further on this one, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Can I just say, if you took the words Bude-Stratton out of this, it could be written about anywhere. What exactly ties it to Bude-Stratton to being Cornish? Being this side of the Tamar?
Yeah, there is. So I'm letting the hands that were up while it was being made speak.
I would say, no, it's gone. I just think we need a document such as this, and I just think kind of filibustering this. Let's just get on, vote for it and adopt it, publish it, and there'll be some comments back, of course there will, and we can look at further iterations.
I think probably the most salient point has been made by a member of the public. If this goes through, tomorrow it goes live, and we'll see how impressed the residents are with the vision. Yeah, okay, and with that in mind, all in favour? Against? Abstain? Sorry, I was my hand went through. To appoint lead councillors and representatives to outside bodies. So we'll just go down the list. Has everybody got one in front of them? Hopefully you'll have volunteers. Lead councillor or councillor representative for crime and community safety.
Can I just make a comment? I'm not volunteering for it.
It's a damn shame, I saw.
Well, I might, yeah, but I suppose the point I want to make is because I felt quite strongly about this when I first joined the council this time round. I'm aware of the fact that this is something that happened in previous councils. What I'm concerned about a bit is what the terms of reference and the definition for these roles are, and that I haven't seen that. I don't know. I would expect if these are roles and jobs and responsibilities, that there's some form of behaviour, if you like, attached to each of these roles. So that councillors here saying they'd like to do it, they know what it is that they're signing up to, and we as a council know what it is that we're going to expect. And I haven't seen any of that. There are several new councillors around the table here that have not had this. So if any of these councillors have got their hand up, based on what's in front of them, they've no idea what they're signing up to. What bothers me about it, from personal experience, is having had councillors in a lead role or as a representative on the town team, for those councillors to report back inaccuracies, let's put it that way, back to the council, which required us as a town team to put in a code of conduct that was upheld because of the falsehoods that were being portrayed around this table. I'm deeply concerned about this level of representation by the council on these committees without any form of terms of reference or what seems to be apparent accountability in an appropriate way. I don't dispute the fact that these things are necessary, but I am concerned about the lack of detail in relation to what these roles actually contain.
Okay. So I think there's a slight conflation here between what is a lead councillor and what is a representative to an outside body.
Which is fair enough.
You've referenced, obviously, the town team. That was a representative to an outside body. Their role was effectively to be on that and report back accurately to the rest of us. A lead councillor is just somebody with a keen interest in that area. So I did sports during the last one. So any sports organisation that wanted to contact the council, they could look on the website and they could go, Councillor Daw, lead with sports. I will email him. And it was then for me to respond to them and report back here. So two very different things.
They are, but just to respond to that, and I think you're entirely right, and you make a good point. But what I did was almost sort of semi-deliberate. But the trouble is that without any of that in writing, we don't know it. And of course we know it, but there are other people around the table who don't.
Right.
And as new councillors, without that description that you just provided, how would anybody know that?
Is that in the welcoming documents? Type up what I just said and put it in the welcoming. It should be in the welcoming document for new councillors. Yeah.
Can I make one more point? And the councillor speaks of just in terms of clarifying. So regarding the representatives, I understand what Councillor Gibbs has said about some difficulties in the past. And with that in mind, we did contact all of these organisations to ask if they wished to have a representative, rather than us being sort of pushing ourselves forward and saying, here is a representative for your organisation. And they all welcomed a link, some sort of liaison function. We particularly have been asked recently by Connect Bude if we could provide somebody, and I know the Bude Harbour Society are very keen to have somebody on board. So that's what those people definitely would like to have one of our representatives, just to clarify that point.
Oh, can I respond? I absolutely agree with you, and I think you're entirely right. However, what is the expectation of each of those organisations in relation to what the input is from that individual councillor, and what level of responsibility does that councillor have towards that particular group? What authority do they have in relation to the discussion with that group, and how does that work as an interplay between those? Because there's going to be expectations within those groups. If they're saying we want a councillor in that group, that's fine, but it's clearly an expectation on behalf of that group that that councillor is going to bring something to the table. Now, unless we describe what that is, both to the councillor and to the group, we don't know what that is, and the expectation therefore may be unreasonable and unrealistic. And the other thing I'd also say is, whilst they've come forward and asked for it, there's lots of other groups that maybe would benefit from it and haven't asked. Now, do those groups know that that is possible? Have we advertised that? I'm not entirely sure we have, because there may be other groups, and equally, we've not really, I don't feel, had a discussion as a council as to what we, again, if we're going to talk about vision, if we're going to talk about representation, what is it that we feel that we want to be involved in at that level, and how is that going to work? Now, are very clear on a lot of that. Now, talk a lot about councillors providing representation to outside bodies. There's clear references to it, and it talks about, pecuniary interest, non-pecuniary interest. It talks about how you can represent. There's a lot of that in there. Now, that would have been a very useful piece of reference work, I think, that would have been helpful to this, but it's not been included, unfortunately, at this stage. And I take your point. I think representatives and lead councillors are two very separate things.
Very, very different.
But they do need to be carefully defined in relation to what we would expect as councillors and vice versa.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I know, last time this came up on the agenda, Tony, we did this exact dance with you making exactly the same points, and we then went out and contacted all of these organisations and said, would you like representation? They have said yes. We've come back to give them representation.
But I want to protect us as a council, I think.
Right, so what, just before I come to anybody else, what would you like us to do? Now, knowing that these organisations have asked for somebody around this table to come and represent the council and listen.
Tony, the word is conduit, isn't it? That's what it is.
It may be, but I also fear, well, and you may have done it, but of course we've not seen it. I think it would be wise, potentially, to be talking to these different groups in some form to gather the information as to why. So, for instance, the need for the Bude-Stratton Harbour Society, for instance, to have a representative from the council on their board or in their meetings, I would suggest is very different from the Bude Area Tourist Board.
Well, that's why we can't have one clear set of criteria that you're asking for, because each one requires a different need.
No, I get it.
You Scouts have got you.
Yeah, no, I get it.
I could name several other organisations that have got me and other councillors around the table, and then we've got this group of people saying, hey, we'd like a voice, we'd like an ear.
I fully appreciate that. So just to sort of follow that through, I think the individual needs of each of the groups are going to be diverse and different. I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
However, we as a council need to be consistent. So each councillor is approaching each of those groups in exactly the same way in relation to what they're offering or what they're able to offer. It's about authority, I think, more than anything else. If we're going to allow a councillor to attend a meeting, in what capacity are they doing that in? Are they endorsed by the council to make decisions on behalf of the council at those meetings? I know, well, that's my point, right? So some people may go with a slightly different opinion than others in relation to that. And what I'm conscious of is that if you've potentially got councillors in the room and there's an expectation of that group, that council can make a decision, that councillor is enthusiastic about trying to support, then potentially, indicates in some way that they're prepared to support that organisation in a way they don't have authority to do, leaves us in a difficult position potentially when it comes back to us, and we're all sitting here debating it, 17 councillors, and one councillor is being very, enthusiastic about supporting whatever it might be, and the rest of us don't feel the same way. Well, how does that look? So it's a case of trying to, what I'm trying to do is protect the individual councillors and us as a council so that we're all absolutely clear what it is that we're doing if we're going to be part of it. And I'm not entirely sure that that's the case.
I'd like to think everybody around this table knows they can't walk into a room and swear the rest of us to voting in their favour. Okay. They could say, I will come back, I will take this to full council, I will argue the case and try to convince the full council to vote along these lines, but I think Does everybody understand that you can't speak for all of us?
Code of conduct, code of
Right.
conduct. Code of
Yeah,
conduct.
so well, let's go, you've had your hands up for a while,
Yeah,
so
I need to
just go in.
I think as a councillor, and I am a co-opted member, so I have to speak as a co-opted member. One of the most things I hear in the town is, I don't know who to approach. So it's great these people want us to go and speak to them, or be the conduit, or be the contact. Doesn't mean you have to know the ins and outs. Yes, hopefully you've got a bit of ability to go and find the ins and outs if you need to. You're not going to go and make any decisions, and you're not going to say, sell the crown jewels. You're going to be sensible, otherwise you shouldn't be a councillor. And what I think is that we've all got different skills, and the beauty of the council is that we have all got different skills, and some of the skills in this council, and forgive me for saying it, are not being used correctly because there is this fear that someone's going to do something wrong. And you're never going to learn anything, and I've only been here 6 months, if nobody gives you the opportunity to learn anything. And there's one way about finding out about this town is to get out there and talk to people. And if you're going around with a hand tied behind your back, it's a bit silly. So I get Tony's point, but I do think we're tying ourselves up. We're not a massive Bill Gates organisation. We're Bude-Stratton Town Council working for their town. So I don't think anyone with a hand on heart will go out there and do anything ridiculous. And if they did, they shouldn't be a councillor. And I'm sure you've got a way of getting rid of those councillors, but yeah, well, yeah, but we still got. You get my point.
At the end of the day, any one of us can go out there and promise anything, but it can't
So
happen
deliver.
until a majority around this table
Yeah,
votes to approve it.
yeah. So we are going to be
And
sensible.
I think we're all quite clear on that,
Yeah.
but Jeremy,
I recognise the issues, but surely one of the most basic ways to give protection, prevention of things going right is a simple letter of introduction to both the individuals and the organisation to say, this is, or these are the parameters that are held and people are working between. And that gives them freedom to work with between absolute parameters.
yeah.
Yeah.
Kevin?
I think council representatives on outside bodies have a bit of a bad rep to kind of follow the town team and the representatives of who were on the town team. They fell out with the town team. The representatives that were on the employment partnership, they were probably far less adopting a scrutiny approach and were probably far less.
Willfully blind.
Well, they did not give us the information that we needed around this table. So I can understand where Tony's coming from. We have two glaring examples where council reps failed. And one of the reasons why they failed is because nobody really knew what they were supposed to be doing and who they were supposed to be representing and the full channels of reporting. I do believe, however, that the town team and the BCP and those sort of bigger organisations with potentially pots of money to spend can be taken away from this process and looked at differently. And the smaller organisations like the Canal and Harbour Society, we can tonight just appoint reps. So I take Tony's comments, but I think that applies to something that we're not discussing tonight, the bigger groups with specifically with money to spend.
Yeah,
They're more of a partnership.
Yeah, that's what I mean, the conflation between big budgets to make fundamental changes to town and Bude-Stratton Twinning Association, which is effectively once every 2 years I greet them or the person in this chair greets them when they come to Bude. And on the corresponding year, the mayor of Gabrique, or however you pronounce it, you know, very, very different to somebody managing a £2 million budget. So, are we happy to go ahead with appointing lead councillors to start with? So, lead councillors is, as I described, you're effectively the first point of call for sports or youth provision or the environment if somebody wants to talk to us about that. Everybody happy with what it is? Okay. Crime and community safety. Any volunteers? Yeah, well, yeah, I think he's said he's too busy for it now. So I propose, Jeremy, can you just put your hand up?
Yeah.
community acceptance and all of that stuff.
So then we'll do a point here properly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
do it properly.
Yeah. All right, all in favour? Okay, youth provision, I propose Katie. Seconded, all in favour? The environment.
Well, depending, because I am involved with the Bude Canal Harbour Society. I'm also involved with the Bude Valley Group through the Bude Canal and Harbour Society. Ian, you're right, you're with the Future Coast Bude, or no, got that wrong. Kevin, you're interested in environment as well.
I am, but I'm not, I'm happy to defer.
That's part of my degree.
I just don't see it as being a big problem if we have to.
Yeah, it makes sense too.
But we're not voting on any kind of body, so, sorry.
I'll put my name forward for that as well then.
Okay, so
I'll step back.
I propose Vicky and, yeah, seconded somebody, all in favour? Okay, economic development.
I'll do it.
Yeah? Okay, I propose Tony and.
Seconded.
All in favour? Health and the older community. I suppose. Somebody seconded it, all in favour? Excellent. Transport and connectivity.
Yes.
There's only one person who could possibly stand
I
in this.
thought he was already on it.
I'm doing it.
No, you look, or just next view.
No, it's not.
Oh, I propose councillor Jennings.
Will
Seconded, all in favour?
that include Stratton?
Hey? I'll let you go through it on the bus.
Yeah. Armed Forces community. I was going to say, I propose Tony.
Seconded.
All in favour? Excellent, thank you. Okay, so now we're going to move on to representatives. Is everybody reasonably happy with what this is? Yeah, okay. So, Bude-Stratton Twinning Association, I'm not going to propose myself, I'm going to propose that remains the chair. I think when they come over, it should be the mayor rather than the individual councillor. Yeah, okay. Oh, sorry, seconded, all in favour? The mayor is not following their rules. Bude Canal and Harbour Society.
Well, I'm already a trustee, and providing it's not a conflict of interest.
Do it.
I'm happy to join, seeing it's a long way from my house.
Okay, I'll propose them both. All in favour?
Which day it is.
Oh, here we go, connect Bude.
They love me.
Are you going to behave yourself?
They love me.
Yeah, I've heard.
The problem that you've got is, and I don't know about anybody else, but you go these things, and if you totally disagree with what they're saying,
Don't like it.
they don't like it.
I know, but it's how we word our disagreements. I have received a few emails with quotation marks about some of your disagreements, which we have discussed. But yes, I'm happy to propose you, but just please behave so I don't have to keep responding to stuff like that.
Well, I mean, I went down to Boltman last week, or a week before, to see the bus people. And it's like trying to walk through treacle. They just don't seem to understand simple things. People don't use the buses because they're not guaranteed to get where they want to go. This is ridiculous.
I second,
Yeah.
All in favour?
provided he does not behave.
Okay. Yeah, if I could have a slight reduction in email complaints starting up the awesome. Bude Valley Management Advisory Group.
I'm already partly on this through Bude Canal and Harbour Society.
You'd like that as well? Yeah. Yeah, okay, so I'll propose Tom and Vicky.
Yeah.
Seconded.
All in favour? Brilliant, thank you.
That's the top half.
Yeah, you do the Marram Chair, Shane.
Yeah, you do the top half.
It's quite well done, I think. Okay, Bude Area Tourist Board.
I'd actually be interested because I run a holiday there.
Could you open hands for it?
I was about to say that's probably a conflict of interest.
Was there any other trustees?
Okay, so was it?
I'll leave.
Okay, so Tony and Pat, all in favour, seconded, I need a seconder, all in favour?
Rogers, or it's Rogers.
Roger.
And there's a good link with the other one.
Exactly,
Absolutely.
North Cornwall Community Area Partnership. I propose those two. All in favour? Brilliant, well done, thank you everyone.
Sorry for being a bit difficult.
That's fine. Fine. Yeah, you're right to ask for clarification. I think it was a reasonable question. I think, yeah.
Actually, can I just say, I think it's a reasonable question on the bigger things.
Yes.
Like we said, when we mentioned it, the money things, where you do need to have, you have to be really strict and protect ourselves.
Absolutely. I was here for the last round and.
We did do it.
Yeah. We'll comply with this. Polite game, how I describe things. Okay, so that's been done. To approve finance report, the schedule of payments to be made on the 6th of February 26. Anyone got any questions? Okay, so I propose that we do it. All in favour? Against? Abstain? The schedule of payments made between the 16th of January 26 and the 5th of February 26. Any query? Was that your hand going up?
I was just trying to find the right page.
Wonderful. Any questions on this? No, I propose we do it. Second it, please. Good. All in favour? Against? Abstain. To receive and note Q3 budget reports. All committees will receive individual budget reports. Any queries? Okay, so I propose we note review. Yeah, seconded, all in favour, against, abstain. And to agree the movement of reserves. Okay, I propose we do that. Seconded, all in favour, against, abstain. Okay, to review debts owed by and owing to BSPC and agree any associated actions. But I think we've probably all seen the email discussion about this. So I'm going to suggest that we deal with all of them except the one under discussion via email, as I'm going to await further information on that. Is that reasonable?
Could you explain what you're talking about, Chair? Because I haven't received anything.
You do emails?
I do read my, but they don't come to me, so I have to read them if they don't come.
Okay, well, we've been given a list of debts. Most of it is sort of small money owed to us by various community members and groups, hiring of things and whatnot that have been chased up. And the auditor has suggested that any debts over 2 years old should be written off. They have, yes, I should emphasise that they have been chased on the list of them.
Yeah, I can see them all.
Yeah. Oh, you have got them.
I got the list, but not.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So there's one big one in there.
Yes, I believe it.
Which questions have been asked about, and an investigation needs to take place. Which is why I suggest we move that one aside and deal with the rest.
Right.
Does everybody understand what I'm on about?
Yes.
So I don't want to get into this in public for obvious reasons. Until that investigation has been done.
I don't see why the public need to worry, it's our esteemed leader. It's the Cornwall Council.
Well, and now you've blurted it out.
I haven't said anything.
I know, fair enough. John.
Minded to agree with you, but there is one that I think should be also added to the list, and that's on the second page, number 10.
Hold on, let me find the list.
Which is the double direct debit by Smartest Energy Limited. There's no reason why. My understanding is that direct debit guarantee, if there's an error with direct debit, that the bank will refund it and then payment back from the group that's double.
Looking at number 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Smartest Energy.
Okay, so.
It's £1,400 something.
Yeah, so two.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
It's been demanded twice, isn't it, basically? And they've not been.
Right, are we sure we're talking about the same one? Number 10 on that list?
On the
The other
second page.
Second page.
Second page. Right, okay, yes, good. I'm glad I checked. Okay, so everybody happy to deal with all others except those two? Yeah?
Can I
Okay.
just make a point of order that these persistent people who don't pay, you know, if they come to hire again, they should not be, oh, good, they should be blacklisted. Yeah, good, right.
Okay,
I'll second your proposal, and if you accept the.
I will turn my suggestion into a proposal that we deal with all others apart from those two then. Yeah. Seconded, so we're going to write off these debts. Everybody understand what I proposed? Okay, all in favour? Against?
If they don't owe us, they owe the people of Bude.
Good point.
They do, you're
They
right.
owe the people of Bude,
Yeah.
and first of all, the people of Bude have every right to know who owes us what. And secondly, they should be bloody made to pay up.
Well,
I mean,
staff have tried a lot.
yeah, I'm not disputing that, but I mean, there's one or two here, they live in Bude, you've only got to walk in their office and get
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, I was tempted to wave the list of names in front of the camera, but.
Yeah, they should be named and shamed.
Yeah.
They're cheating the people of
Yeah,
Bude.
They are, yeah, I agree. And Stratton.
I can.
And
You've got to be right in front of me.
And we make sure that they don't hire from us, no matter what.
Yeah, they get blacklisted
That's right.
once we come. So.
If we've written to,
Or not now, I forgot. We did, we voted on that, good, okay, we'll move on.
Chair, before you move on, if we've written to them and they refuse to pay, shouldn't the general public know?
Yeah,
who
they
these
should.
people are?
Of course they should.
I'm not gonna.
Some of them are businesses.
I think.
Well, why not?
Unfortunately, it's easier.
Yeah.
Well, I'll leave this lying around.
There's one of them that gives us quite a hard time on social media. Regularly, and
Yeah.
perhaps there'll be a screenshot of that posted up next.
Has the CCJ route been explored?
Yeah, that's right. The amount of money we're is beyond the reasonable. Okay, come on. Councillor Jennings.
This should be pinned up in the notice board by the triangle.
Here. I'm not going to stop you.
No, that's all right, then I'll do it tomorrow. Who do I get the key from? Eh? Well, the mate was in there this morning doing it when I walked past.
Okay, we're going to move on. To review and approve the Heritage Centre Care and Conservation Policy 2026 and Documentation Policy Statement 2026. Wordy. So, does anybody have anything on this?
The only thing I would like to say is that to make sure we keep the accreditation we've got for the castle, is to ensure that we are up to date with ensuring that, as it says, monitoring and improving environmental conditions, temperature, relative humidity, light and dust, building maintenance, all those sorts of things, all come into the effect of our accreditation. So we do need to make sure we stay on top of those.
Okay, and we start at that end and come down the day.
Two things, yeah. One is, right at the very end, it says the Heritage Centre does not contain any working historic items. Why is that there? Do we need a statement like that? Because some of the things that are historic do work. I just wonder why it's there.
Get that cannon working.
Well, if you stand in front of it, I'll get it to work.
Some of the lifeboat the old-fashioned way, didn't we?
Yes, yes. The other thing was, if there are items in the castle that are of real value, what about fire? Are they in a position that the firemen know exactly where they are, so if they go in, they can get their hands on them straight away? Or general
Are we talking about people being rescued, or?
No. Let's assume it's things of a significance.
Right.
Not people.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so there is an emergency plan, which the castle has in place, which is specific for the site. And there are photographs of the key items. So if there is a need to go in.
Okay, good.
There's a sort of flood, but any sort of emergency, then people can go and rescue the most high value.
That's what. Yeah. Fine. Thank you for that. Good.
Kevin next.
I have a certain amount of reservation because although we are committed as an authority to retain this accredited status, I am somewhat at a loss to fully understand what we actually gain by that. And sometimes I think that chasing accreditation for the sake of accreditation is not the way to go, that we should be mindful that maybe we could accept a lesser level of accreditation, but without the associated cost. But I'm assured, or I was assured when I raised this point at Cultural and Heritage, that accreditation opens funding doors. And if that is the case, and if it can be deemed that accreditation is worthwhile for us to have, then obviously these points need to be addressed. So I'm minded to support them, but I'm also minded to suggest that we try and put in, probably through the C&H committee at some point, some kind of reality check on these to see what benefit we're getting from accreditation and what costs accreditation is accruing to us. So at this point, I'm minded to go forward, but I wouldn't write a blank check that we will pay whatever it costs to keep that accreditation going.
I think that's fair point.
Jeremy,
Great to have the policy. We need the policy. How are we reassured that the next level down is done and that monitoring and improving the documentation of all of this, of all of the checks, have we got a kind of buildings management system that can actually say to us, yes, all of this has been done? I'm hoping it's in place, that I just make the point that the policy is great. Let's make sure we've done the next level down as well.
Yeah, so just one thing, I think it's a good policy and I think we do need it, take Jeremy's point, but can't we also put in there who owns this in terms of accountability? So would it be a role, not a person's name, a role? Because it would be good to know who's actually responsible for it.
Yeah.
Who owns the plans? And if you can, I don't know if you can, where you refer to other documents, can we have those inserted so they're easy to click on and pick up at the same time?
I can feed that back and include that.
Yeah. Happy?
Yeah, thank you, yeah.
Okay, so I think it's Katie, then Vicky, then Sarah.
I think, so I think the accreditation also relates to, us being able to have certain items and being able to show that we can look after them in the correct way. And so sort of without that, people are less willing to, let us borrow certain items, share certain items, things like that. It gives us an ability to be that heritage centre, that museum, and have access to those items, and shows that we do everything that we can to look after, maintain and manage those things. And I think just in terms of sort of policies in general, that is something that is being currently worked on. So.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I believe there's one particular painting, and I'm not sure, I think it's a Branscombe, that we only have because we say that it will be kept in this environment, that the temperature, the humidity, is all that is needed to make sure that painting is preserved the best as possible. So the accreditation does count for us getting items, and it does count towards grants.
Yeah, I suppose just to follow on from that, this is not a new thing. This is something that's been in place for quite some time. The Castle and the Heritage Centre, or the Heritage Centre here that we're talking about, is a really well-respected archive of local historical information and data, and it's been well recognised nationally over the years. There's been several awards that have been provided to it. So we know, I think, that we've got a really well-run, well-organised and managed heritage centre by our curator. And I've no reason to doubt that, she has nothing but the highest levels of professionalism and capability involved in this, and has done a great job over the years. All this is really is just to ensure that continues. I agree with the point. It would probably be worthwhile for the C&H committee just to review some of that documentation, but I think that that's sort of in progress, and we can assure ourselves, I suppose, really, that all of these things are appropriately done and managed, and consider the resource implications to the council overall. Will be a worthwhile exercise. I take your point on that, but I think as it stands, I think it's an important document that we need about that.
Anybody want to make a proposal?
I'll propose that we approving to adopt these policies and documents.
I'll second that. All in favour? Against? Abstained? To review and clarify the governance arrangements for working groups and propose a simple protocol to ensure transparency, consistency and good governance. I think this was brought by
It was brought by me, yes.
Introduce it.
Yeah, as a new member, I found most things very straightforward, but I do find that the way that working groups are organised, I find a little bit confusing, because sometimes people are asked to join them, sometimes they volunteer to join them, other times they are invited to do a written resume of why they should do it, a written application. And we've talked about transparency, and we talked about consistency, and I think perhaps having a fixed policy for Bude-Stratton Town Council would help with both of those things. Now, guidelines are good practice in general terms, but they say the same things about committees, and they call them steering groups. And steering groups or working groups and committees are not the same thing. The committees have certain legal conditions imposed upon them, whereas working groups don't. I've put out a paper, I hope you all looked at it. It's just illustrative purposes, just to give you some idea of the sort of thing I mean. I'm quite happy for it to be changed and updated and amended in any way. But it would certainly help me as a new member to know what working groups do, how they're formed, because they seem to be a very important part of the council.
Yeah, I think, after working group that we've had over at C&H, I think personally the work that was done and the way it went about is a really good example of how working groups should be done. And I think, you know, this document does fit with a lot of it. I think one of the only points that I sort of was where we had to specify the time, how long it was going to take us. Sometimes that's very difficult. It wasn't really until, you know, we sort of sat down as a working group and looked at what was in front of us that we could go, this is how long it's going to take us, you know, and then be able to present that. So I think that's quite a difficult thing sometimes to suggest ahead of time before you've really sat down and understood what it is. So that's sort of one of the only things that I had concerns about was specifying that ahead of sitting down and looking at it.
Yeah, sorry, I'll come back to that. I just fair point. I think you've worded it as duration or review date. So I think rather than agreeing the end game, you agree we will review in 6 months, or we will. I think that's a reasonable way around it personally.
Yeah, that's a better way of saying it. You know, we can come back in 3 months and have a catch up rather than specifically saying this is how long we're going to take, because, you know, I mean, we did 4 months, so we couldn't have.
We started the skate park on 5 years ago.
Well, but there you go. So but you'd have been a bit over time.
I think I'm probably the only member left on it. But okay, sorry, I'll go up the table this time.
So I'm all in favour, like you, Pat. I think it's great to have a guide, but I'm really conscious that we don't want to suffocate people, because working groups only work if you all got your own opinions and you bring your ideas and you drive out the best outcome. And sometimes you get beaten down by things and you get, what shall I say, you get disengaged by sometimes because people tend to just not listen or don't want to listen. So I think it's really important that this is a good document, but we need to be more flexible in the way we invite people on, and everyone's got something to bring to the table, and we've all got to give them the civility and respect they deserve, but also be mindful that they just might be the cherry that we want, and you're excluding people because they're frightened, they're constrained by these things, and it's like, we don't want to go on that in case I get it wrong and all this sort of thing. So be flexible as you can and be more inclusive and be more open and honest, and I suppose genuine, really, I think is what I'm asking for. Just come with an open mind and not have any preconceived ideas. If you can do that within a document, that's great, but don't tie us up, if that makes sense.
Okay. So is there some wording you would like to add to this document? Thanks, John.
It just feels like it's the sort of thing you would have on a much bigger project and working in a commercial environment where you've got accountability. We've got accountability in the council, obviously, but a lot of people here are volunteers and they come with what skills they've got.
Yes.
If you're in a job, you'd be employed for that role. Whereas you're not here, are you? You just bring what you've got to the table and you do your best. You do it with a very good conscience, but it's difficult to tie the people in. I just think this could be a bit formal. It's a bit overkill.
Okay.
For a working group.
Fair enough. Sorry, actually, I've got to Tony, because you always seem to be at the end of my...
Yeah, sorry. I'll take your point, but just to counter that, I think experience shows that with the best will in the world, I think taking your point on board, but the reality is without a set of handrails, for want of a better word, people get involved in these things and don't really know why they're doing it. And working groups are really important. They're different than committees, and they're clues in the title. They're there to get together to do some work for a result. So you know why you're getting into it before you start, because you want to know what you're working towards. So therefore, what you want is the right people around the table with the right levels of skill set and engagement to achieve the aim. It's not a debating group, it's a working group. And I think I believe that by having a document like this, we'll do exactly the opposite of what you were suggesting. Is if people know what they're getting involved in because they've read it, then they're more likely to want to engage with it because they know what it is, rather than wondering what it is and then arriving and finding it's not quite what they thought it was, or it's quite difficult for them and therefore they become disengaged. So I agree with you, we don't need a rigid set of rules, but we certainly need some sort of description as to what we believe as a council and working group is. And also, and again, it comes back to accountability, that the working group knows what they're accountable to do and the manner in which they're due to do it, because ultimately in the end that working group has got to report back to the committee, and that committee needs to report back to full council for endorsement. And so without knowing that, as new councillors as well, bearing in mind we've potentially got new councillors coming on board all of the time, they're going to sit here and think, well, working group, is that something I should be doing, or do I want to get involved in that? So by having a really simple, straightforward document that highlights exactly what a working group does and the manner in which it does it, there should be no surprises to that individual if they're going to get involved. And that's all it is.
Yeah.
I'd take a different view, and I'd cherry pick both the things, because I think a working group needs to have a very, very well-defined terms of reference. Everybody on that working group needs to know exactly what they're about. But a working group for one thing can be completely different from a working group for another. When my first formal interaction with this council, I was on a working group that only met online. It was related to formulation of environmental policy. We had officers there, we had elected members, we had members of the public, we had people from the charity sector. We were involved in formulating some of the environmental policy or feeding into that. That's different from a working group that's specifically about a operation within the council, like the council. So I would say myself that working groups need to be much more defined than we have done in the past, but on each and every occasion. And what we can't do, or what I feel we would beat our heads up, or it would be so woolly if we tried to create a template one size fits all. It would either be so woolly as to be useless, or so prescriptive as to not fit all cases. So I don't think you can get away with looking at each case on its merits and formulating guidelines or terms of reference for each and every individual working group that's set up.
I'll just respond to that, sorry, very quickly. I think you're absolutely right with that, and I think this council's fallen foul of that in several different occasions by not defining clearly enough what they expect the outcome of a working group to be, and it's been allowed to sort of meander, and people have been involved and dipped in and out, and that's not really what we want. However, I think there's a two-pronged approach to this. I think having this sort of broad concept of what a working group is that everybody broadly agrees to, I think is important, but I think it's then down to the committee, so the individual committee that it sets up that working group should be clear on exactly the points you've just raised. So the parameters, the outcomes, the involvement should be set by that committee at the point they're setting that working group up. So it would need to be clearly defined, almost as a paper, if you like, if you're going to do it in advance, which I'd like to think you would, because you know it's coming. So it would be an agenda item. We're going to set this working group up in order to report back to this committee to achieve this thing. We'd expect this working group to consist of whatever, right? And they set the very clear parameters based on the requirement, because you're absolutely right. The requirement for each working group will be different, and that will be dictated by the committee, who understands exactly what they think the output needs to be. And I think that probably meets both objectives. And we don't need to define that here. I think that would be down for the committee to do. Does that seem reasonable?
We set up a working group to define.
No, because
somebody needs to say it. But it's a valid point. We could actually have a working group to take the draft and turn it into a document. I'll go up the table to Katie and Vicky.
I think I agree. I think we need some sort of terms of reference for working groups broadly, and then I think it does need to be on an individual basis. We look at it because we all do bring different skills, and sometimes there are specific skills that are needed in that working group. However much you might want to be a part of it, and that kind of the onus then becomes on you. You need to be able to understand what is the outcome of this working group, what do we need you to do, and is that part of your skill set? Because if it isn't, then maybe this one isn't for you, but the next one might be better fitted for you. And I think that's important too, because the clue's in the name. You've got to be able to work, and if you can't work because you don't understand, or it's not something that you're really interested in, then that it is just not going to work, and you're going to come to a standstill. So I think, you need to have a broad terms of reference for working groups, and then each one needs to be taken on its own merit that the committee looks at, and the onus becomes on each individual person as to whether you are a good match for that working group or not.
I think what Pat has put together is an excellent start, really good. From my point of view, I think the biggest thing is at the setup, it needs to be democratic. You need an openness, you need a transparency in the initial setup. But I also still feel that I know we talk about specific skill sets, but it should be also able to give the opportunity to councillors to partake if they wish to. Because who knows, you might suddenly discover that that is the right person, but they might not have realised that they have actually got those skills because nobody has ever given them that opportunity.
Yeah, I think I agree in principle with what you're saying, but I think there is a practical reason for limiting the numbers, and those of us that were here last time
That's
a very good example of it.
That is covered in here, I would say, by the voting factor.
Yeah, if you've got too many people on a working group, they effectively become the committee.
Yeah.
Or they effectively, we had this with the oversight committee last time, it was 12 members, whatever they voted through became full council policy before it got to full council, because they had the number. So while I agree that everybody should have an opportunity, there are very good reasons for keeping things limited, for want of a better term, to ensure that we don't end up in the kind of mess, me, myself, Tony, Tom, and a few others experienced last time, where full council meetings were just out.
Like everyone else. I'm not trying to make it too formal, I don't think. It's really just a framework to show how working groups are formed and how they report. And things like the terms of reference and so on will be set up by each individual working group. But there are just, I think it would help me, for example, if I looked at terms of reference, then I'd know what I needed to get through. But what will be under those headings will be totally up to each group. Yeah, of course, all walking groups are different, but I didn't want to restrict that. I just wanted to make it clearer what they are, because and how they work, and made the fact that they should be made public to all of the council, because there are some working groups exist now that I don't know about.
Yeah, I mean.
And I don't think that's particularly helpful.
Just on that, was everybody provided, every new councillor provided with a list, obviously, of committees, but...
Yeah, I was just making note of that. I will circulate a list of the current.
Yeah, so get that circulated out, but also added to the new councillor pack.
Yeah.
There is one thing I'd like to say, that if it's a democratic process, which it should be, and you know yourself, if you're going to bring something to the table, you've got to bring it to the table, right? And if you don't know anything, then you'd like to think that you would say, this is not for me. But if you get someone who doesn't know anything, and we don't know that person very well, and they get voted on, what are you going to do then? Are you going to say you're not suitable for the task? Which I fully understand. I think that is what should happen, because you don't want to fall foul of getting people in who just
The terms of reference should give you the mechanism to remove either A, problematic behaviour, or B,
someone who's not suitable.
Somebody who is demonstrably not suitable but unwilling to accept that, shall we say?
They just don't get it, just don't know it.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
If you're dealing with finance, you need people in there that have got a basic grasp of finance. That's not the place to learn.
So there will be a mechanism to say,
that'll be down to the individual working group.
Yeah. So that would be in the specific terms of reference, I would say.
Yeah, so before they get signed off, the terms of reference for that particular working group, you would expect anyone who's not suitable to recognise that and be asked to not be involved. Yes?
Yeah.
No, good, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, obviously, anybody can be politely asked to step aside.
Doesn't always work.
But there should also be a mechanism in there. If something is becoming dysfunctional, there needs to be a mechanism to rectify that.
Excellent.
Okay?
Yep, excellent.
Kevin.
I think there's a difference between a working group of the council in the manner that we had the working group that was looking at the audit report for the council. That's entirely of the council for something that's happening within the council. And I believe that in those situations, transparency among people around this table is legitimate, and everybody knowing that it's happening around this table, that is perfectly legitimate. There are other working groups that work with outside bodies where the council representatives within the working group can be in a small minority, and you're working with commercial interests, and you're working with people that their input into that working group may be less fulsome if they were in the full glare of the public, or even if they knew that every member of the working group was feeding back to the council. So I think it's quite legitimate for a working group to be creative, that goes off, does that piece of work, then reports back to its relevant committee. And at the time it reports back to the relevant committee, that's when you have your first level of democratic scrutiny. And then if it comes to this table, it has another level of democratic scrutiny. I don't think we need to expose working groups to the level of scrutiny and transparency, because if we do, we may not get the membership of those working groups, and we may not get the fulsome debate that we would otherwise have. So although people always sort of talk about, smoke-filled corridors and, as long as those working groups are feeding back to committee, as long as committee's feeding back to full council, I'm relatively comfortable with the working groups themselves not having to have those sort of democratic norms that we will have to work with around this table.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I suppose the first thing to say about, of course, I might be stating the obvious, but decision making can be delegated to a committee, but it can't be delegated to a working group. So that's one fundamental difference there. And I have always had this kind of idea or favourable towards working groups being open to, and Kevin just kind of touched on it there, to non-councillors and people who don't want to commit to being councillors full-time or whatever, but have a specific interest, and they might, as Kevin said, they might have a commercial interest. And I'm concerned about including them having to comply with a code of conduct. So does that mean if you have a member of the public who wants to be part of a working group, they then first of all have to undergo code of conduct training? And I think it'd be a barrier, and on the basis that there is no decision making, functions. I don't see that compliance with the code of conduct is absolutely necessary. So yeah, and of course I have a liking for things to be more informal, especially at a working group level, and there's no decision making, as we said, it's worth emphasising, no decision making powers, purely to look into something in detail and make a recommendation or put forward ideas to a committee or the full council, whoever is the appointing body.
Yeah, first point, under membership it says non-councillors may be invited to contribute in an advisory capacity but are not members. So I don't know whether it would be the members that would comply with the code of conduct, not the people that are there in an advisory.
Right, well that will have to be clarified.
Yeah, well, it's on point 3 membership. And the other thing is, it's not trying to be more, it doesn't stop it being informal, the meetings themselves can be informal. All this is how they're set up and how they report.
That's say informally, it says the word in it. Yeah. Working groups operate informally and are not subject to statutory public meeting.
If you say they're working informally, but you've got all these formal criteria, terms of reference, and I'm not criticizing, just saying what.
Yeah, fine.
I think it is important, though, from that perspective, as councillors, and we're talking about councillors here, that we are prepared to operate under the code of conduct and the Norton principles at all times, regardless of what we're involved with, if it is council business.
Oh, absolutely. We would be bound by the code of conduct.
Absolutely right. And I think the proposal you're making manages that quite nicely. by the fact that what you're doing is defining the difference between members and advisory individuals. Anyone who is not a councillor as part of the working group would be there in an advisory capacity. Therefore, they're not bound by the membership laws that the rest of us absolutely are. So it clears that up quite nicely from my perspective. They can still participate, they're still involved in the working group, but they're there in an advisory capacity, supporting the activity of that working group, which would be clearly defined by the committee that set that working group up in the first
So
place.
that all members of the committee of the working group, whether they're councillors or non-councillors, will only be there in an advisory capacity. Because they wouldn't be decision making.
No, they're not. But I think we're confusing the issue.
I'm trying to differentiate between members and non-members.
Yeah.
That's all.
To overcome exactly the issue.
Yeah, I think it's almost a semantic argument. I think we could probably polish the wording to make it clear, but the essence, I understood the essence of what you were trying to say. I think most, yeah. I understand your point as well.
Because, and you know, we hear comments from the public area on a regular basis, and you know, I'd love to be able to say to those people, well, there's a working group, join this working group, whatever.
Yeah.
But specific areas that people are specifically interested in, who may not want to commit to being a councillor, or there might not be a vacancy, of course. And
I mean,
I'm probably a simpleton and very naive, but I think this is a good draft. I mean, for me, any working party needs to be set up properly, with clear terms of reference, reporting, and so forth. This does it. I'm prepared to propose that we adopt it.
We had two hands up.
Me first?
Yeah.
Are we saying that members of the public will be allowed to join any working group that we?
No.
Okay. I just want to make sure that that is clear in that it's not.
Defined
Yes.
when we discuss what we're going to set up.
I just need that to be clear.
How we're going to operate.
Yeah.
We're dealing with confidential stuff. You know.
Well, I wanted it to be
Yeah.
absolutely clear within that is going to be the case. But that's
appropriate.
They say may be invited.
The word, yes.
For example, sorry to take up time, but we're all able to starting shortly and I need to go. But for example, there was a member of the public who was very interested in, if you remember back on neighbourhood development plan, and who clearly doesn't want to be a councillor, but might be appropriate to have done, if of course that's now gone anyhow. And in fact, there was a working group of sorts, wasn't there, in the review of the neighbourhood development plan was sort of started but never completed.
No, I was just going to say I would second Jeremy's proposal, and I think it's a very good start. I would suggest we run with it. There's nothing to stop us amending it at a later date.
Put in a review at 3 or 6 months' time from the.
Or 2 or 3 working groups. Yeah.
Have a working group to look at the working group.
Yeah.
My only concern is democracy, and as we found out with the previous council, you could have a working group of all like-minded people coming to, strangely, all agreed with a particular outcome, which might not be democratically the feeling of the general. So does the chair step in to look at the makeup of working groups? Should somebody oversee the members of a working group?
I think that,
you know, I just
the committee or the full council would be ultimately be able to appoint or advise against, perhaps. I mean,
I don't want to see close shops. That's all.
Seconded now. I'm wondering, do we just need to finesse the wording slightly? Yes. Before we push this through.
I'm happy to withdraw it.
Or we can make an amendment, like I can suggest an amendment to it that we
Whichever.
roll with it, we finesse the wording, we bring it back next month for full council's approval.
I'd almost say bring it back next month, finesse it first, and bring it back for.
So could we want to form a little working group with finesse the wording? I'll leave that decision up to you, because
Yes, it, as I said, it was only there for illustrative purposes.
Yeah.
It does need working on, and yeah, I mean, I Anyone else want to work with me on a working group?
I'd happily.
No, I've got a question.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. These working groups, can't you just limit them to say 4 people or 5 people?
Well, you can't limit it to the numbers, yeah. That's what I addressed when I was saying you don't want.
You don't want 10 or a dozen, so you say, right, there can only be 4 or 5.
Here it says
Working
between
groups should have a
3 and 6.
voting majority over full council or the committee.
No, it says between 3 and 6.
Yeah. You need enough to be core, even if a couple of people are away, but you don't want to be in a position where they can just outvote the rest of the council.
Can I just make one other point, of course, that if the council or the committee is unhappy with the way the working group is working, there's nothing to stop the council or that committee disbanding the working group.
Okay, so
Just to say one thing, it's quite difficult if you have a group of, say, 4 knowledgeable people who have formed the group, they've got an opinion, and they come into a small meeting, would be 10. And those 4, rather than opening it up, state what they want, because they're the boys, it's mostly men, sorry. And we cannot have that. That's just as bad as what you were complaining about. When you got so many on it, you're faced with a decision which was taken outside the room it should have taken.
Yeah.
So we need to look at the makeup of the group.
The makeup of the group, and I mean, a working group cannot make. I mean, the example I used, the committee couldn't make decisions. It could decide to recommend to full council, and then 12 of them rolled in, and it was the Stepford wives all put their hand in the air. And, it was a working group couldn't do that because it can't make a decision. It could only it could do the work limited by the scope of its inception and make a recommendation. But we could amend that recommendation. Carry on.
Just very quickly, I take your point, but I also think it's important for us to consider here that as councillors, ultimately, in the end, our objectives are pretty similar, which is for the benefit of the overall community. And I'd like to think that all of us have got the integrity and the trust of each other, that ultimately we're trying to work towards a common aim. And if a working group is set up in order to work on a piece of work that's been identified legitimately by that committee, and the terms of reference are set out clearly and everybody knows what they're doing, what I'd expect to happen is that working group works together collectively for the common good to produce a piece of work that committee and this council will be content with. As I said, it's not a debating group, it's not a committee, it's a set of people coming together for a common purpose. And I'd like to think that I trust everybody around this table enough to do that with a level of integrity and trust required. Now, we could debate that until the council come up. However, we have to have a system where we're able to come together effectively and efficiently to work together to achieve the results we need. If we don't have working groups to do it, then the committees are not the place. It's been tried and tested, and it didn't work. It tied this council up in knots, and we achieved nothing. So if we don't have an effective system in place to achieve it, I don't know what the alternative is.
Okay, so
Can I propose that Councillor Richings, O'Sullivan and Alsbury Bockings finesse this draft of the working group protocol and present it at the next meetings?
Second, and I be added to that.
You'd like to
If I can.
Councillors Richings, O'Sullivan, Alsbury Bockings and
Controversial, aren't
I'm going to bring it back to the next council for approval. I will second that proposal. All in favour? Against? Abstain? Okay.
Thank you for that.
Well done. You've got your working group set up. That's good. No, this is the right way to do it. Good. Well done. Sign and seal the parking order 2026 for town council parking provision.
I propose it.
I'll second it. All in favour? Consider the establishment of a memorial garden for non-military services and approve any associated actions.
You put up with the two people who would be speaking about
Sorry,
that.
Tatiana, I can't hear you.
Sorry, I was just asking if we could defer that one because Mr. Broy specifically asked if he was not present and he isn't because he's unwell, and the chap he's been speaking to, Jamie.
Yeah, okay, I propose we defer it. All in favour? To appoint members to the Cultural and Heritage Committee, we need to.
No, this one.
Right.
You know why you missed, you know why you missed it.
You know why I missed this one. Awkward to that, you know. To agree a response to a consultation TSPO renewal alcohol consumption in public places 2026.
It's been circulated, so if anybody has any comments, it's an annual, a regular consultation process anyway. If anyone has any comments on places where they would like there to be prohibitions on alcohol consumption, that kind of thing. Some parishes feel very strongly about this and some don't have any comments to make. I don't know what you normally do.
Oh, this time of year it's very quiet anyway. It's,
I think we've discussed before, invariably how it is actually policed comes up, and regardless of what we could decide to ban people from drinking anywhere, and we can't enforce it.
we just tell our police representative to have a chat. He's sitting here happily.
Very out of control.
I'm going to propose we make no comment unless anybody wants to make a comment. You want to make a comment?
Yeah, no, the triangle. You should ban drinking in the triangle.
Everybody's going to be drinking when you put names up on that
That's
thing.
a right growing up here.
Might be, but if the cops have only got to walk down here, even they could manage that.
Yeah. Okay, so
It's getting back up
we
afterwards.
seconded. Does anybody want to ban drinking in the triangle? Yeah, okay. So we've got a proposal to make no comment, all in favour? Against? Abstain. Now we're going to appoint two members of the Cultural and Heritage Committee. Any volunteers? Your hand's waving, Councillor Phil.
No, could you read that? Who's on it? I don't know whether I'm on it or not.
You are on it.
You are on it.
You are already on
This
it.
is why you choose your mechanism to remove people that don't know they're on it.
Call me two then.
Any volunteers?
I have looked at it, but I want to look at commitments before I can commit.
It's a bit cultural, you know that.
Yeah.
Okay, right, we'll move on then.
You've got the best committee, but.
I think
Yeah, you have been on planning though, haven't you?
Receive items of correspondence.
Can I just ask a question? We talked about the meeting council sessions, and what's the mechanism for reporting back? It's very good.
I would quite happily take that in the lead councillor's part. Which one was it?
We missed out. We missed both.
Would you like me to revert back to that bit, please, councillors?
Well, I was hoping that you
Yes,
would.
of course we would.
Report on the
My report on how that went is a perfect example right here of I kept getting dropped in it by Councillor O'Sullivan. Was like, what does the mayor think of this? Well, a good example of him doing it right now. No, it was a good meeting. A lot of interest, a lot of public interest from the residents of Stratton, as you would expect. I thought we had a good conversation with them. The way I thought it would go, there was a lot of people upset with all the camper vans being parked in there.
There was 12 there the other night.
Yeah, I must admit, when I parked in there to actually go to the meeting and kind of take note, and you know, there was two specifics, but there was one area where I looked and thought they were all the same car. Two cars with two vans blocking the two cars, and I thought, no, that's one person with four vehicles.
Yeah.
But it has to be acknowledged that there is a distinct lack of parking in Stratton. So, you know, I think we got a good feel for what the community wanted. and we can feed that back as part of the consultation process. Is that a reasonable assessment?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I was delighted to see yourself and the deputy mayor and the councillor Sampson, and of course the common councillor for the team, which has made it even more authentic. Well, I won't say authentic, but may give it a bit more weight. I'm just wondering, is there somebody? How is this with council arrangements going to work out from now on? Is councils are going to set up meetings, or are there plans for it? There is one that I thought might be appropriate. It came up at CMD recently, to do with the communication regarding the Offal Cemetery, which would be an ideal one to have at the Preston Gate over in King Towns.
So you're going to suggest the cemetery?
I have spoken to CD.
I'm sure the Preston Gate would be quite happy with that.
Yeah, and so, but it's not all about Stratton, is it, Councillor Jennings? So
well,
if there's
that area is.
No, what I mean is, it is. If there's other, there should be other meet council sessions as well. Yeah. So.
Yeah, no, it's on my to-do list for the beginning of next week to go and speak to various community cafes to see if they'd be willing to host a meet the council session there, and if they are, then obviously I will feed that back to councillors and see if there's anybody that would be willing to do one there. So,
just on the car park in Stratton, it was resolved within the CMD committee that we would start a very tentative gathering of information as to whether there could be possibly, maybe, might, a chance of us as an authority taking on Stratton Car Park, and possibly also, maybe, might, the play area in Stratton and what implications would flow from that. And I wondered whether there were anyone at the Meet the Councillor sessions suggesting something similar, that we have it rather than Cornwall Council.
It was mentioned, yeah. I was kind of asked to address that, and without declaring whether I'm for or against the idea, because I haven't actually formed that decision yet. The one thing I pointed out is that where there is an upkeep cost, there is a requirement to raise funds, and how do you go about doing that? So that is something that would need to be factored into it. Now, let's throw this out there wildly, depending on how many people are watching. If Cornwall Council wanted to devolve a car park that's costing them money and making them nothing to us, I'm not necessarily against it, but I would be quite keen to take on a car park that is making them money, so that we could use that to fund the one with a cost attached. So, now I doubt they'd be very keen, but
might give us some of these on the proviso we clear the sand. But anyway,
you can see where I'm going. Just don't just dump your problems our end. If
Can I just say, sorry to interrupt, but this was conversation was meant to be about just meet the councillors. So I see it as.
What are you going to do if the people of Bude decide that they want no park, they want free parking as well then?
If the people of Bude don't know where to park for free, Darky.
You used to be able to park in the Crescent car park after 6 o'clock for free, but Cornwall Council are charging for that now.
Yeah, which is why all the people who usually say,
we're not going to do a car parking debate now. I appreciate Kevin raised, brought to our attention that CMD had made a resolution, so we're not going to re-debate that now. Thank you for bringing that up, Tom. It was actually a good point.
Can I just ask one question that's been asked of me, and it's actually plays into the Cultural and Heritage Committee issue. We have some vacancies. What are the plans for filling the vacancies on the council? We have at least one, don't
We have one, yeah. So the process is that we notify Cornwall Council and they then issue us with a notification regarding an election, if that is requested by the tenant council, by tenants of public. It's the usual process, but we have to go through that first before we, and if there is no election called, then we are able to co-opt. So it's the usual process.
Have we initiated that process?
Very quickly, but it's on the list, and I just made a little note now to remind myself, so I will do that in the next few days.
Thanks. I can go back to the people who are asking me.
Yeah, there will be communications about that, but we'll all come here in the next week or two.
Okay. So on that note, we are going to note the date of the next meeting, which is Thursday, the 12th of March, 2026.
And just to make a note,
Yeah.
sorry, that it's not first Thursday of the month, it's the second.
It's the second Thursday, the 12th, because St. Piran's is the first Thursday, and we kind of figured half of us wouldn't be here.
We'll be in a hostel.
Being this is Cornwall, it should be a public holiday.
I'm completely with you on that one. If we are going to close the meeting, thank you all very much. Good meeting.